If I put that in front of my eye, it just makes everything darker, but I don't get this motion blur effect. My eyes clearly need an ISO setting. What's up, Pascal here, and today we'll test some ND filters from Freewell for you guys for the GoPro Hero 9 and also the Insta360 One R, the 1-inch edition and the 360 edition, so that will be interesting. And I must honestly say I'm generally not a big fan of ND filters for action cameras. I will tell you later why, and I will also tell you why that mustn't be the case for you. So the motorbike footage was shot without an ND filter. As you could see, there was no motion blur inside, which is what you want to get with an ND filter. You want to keep the shutter speed low and therefore you get natural motion blur. And there's actually a good reason why I'm testing those filters with my motorbike. The reason is simply what I mentioned before, that I'm not really a big fan of ND filters for action cameras, because the way how I use action cameras is that I just want to get quick shots with it without having to think too much. So I just want to pull my camera out, want to press a button and I want to get the shot, and I also want to have it stable, etc. So it's also kind of a gimbal replacement. So in order to do so, I don't want to mess around with ND filters all the time, but I have to do that if I want to get natural motion blur. So I would have to mess around with the shutter speed and getting the right ND filter all the time. But I talked about that with my friend Roma, and he does cycling videos, and that's why he actually loves ND filters, because when you're on a bicycle or on a motorbike or whatever, you have a lot of motion, and that definitely looks better when you have motion blur. So that's why I want to test that here on my motorbike. So now the results, you saw that doesn't look that nice, but it's okay without an ND filter. So I would say let's now go back to my motorbike and attach the ND filters and see if that looks better. So what I will do before I attach the ND filters to the GoPro and the Insta360 is I would set my shutter speed to 1/50 or 1/48 of a second, because that is twice the frame rate and that gives me natural motion blur. And then I choose an ND filter that makes the image look good and not overexposed, because if you keep the shutter speed low, then that usually means that your image gets way too bright, and the ND filter is there to compensate for that. By the way guys, how do you like this format? I just got the A7S III together with a Sony microphone and the Tamron 17 to 28mm lens, because I really want to vlog a bit more on this channel. So let me know in the comments below how you like it so far. And yeah, I'm up now and I had a quick look at the footage, and I must actually say it looks so much smoother with the ND filters. I really like it. So maybe I will use this ND filters in the future for my motorbike trips, but still not on my normal videos, because it's just, for me personally, for the type of videos that I shoot, not convenient enough to use with action cameras, as I mentioned before. But well, if you do similar videos with your motorbike, with your bicycle or whatever, or generally videos where you have a lot of motion inside and you have the time to set everything up with ND filters, then yeah, that definitely enhances your footage. So but now on the way up, I had both cameras set to completely manual, like they didn't really adjust anything. And now I've set the cameras up to automatic, so that they raise and lower the ISO whenever they want. And I think that is a bit better, because when the sun shines through the trees here, then sometimes the shadow could be a bit dark. I think you could have seen that on the Insta360 before. So let's also see now at the end of the video how that performs when it's set to automatic. There are so many fancy cafes here in Chiang Mai. I love that, but the leather here really tops everything. So this is Roma, by the way, the guy that I talked before that does all the bicycle videos, and we just had a look at the footage here, and conclusions on both cameras are pretty similar, but the Insta360 has one advantage which we will talk about in 1 second. So basically what I saw in the footage is that it definitely looks better with the ND filter when I drive, because it's just smoother. You have this nice motion blur at the edges, and that also makes it look that you drive a bit faster, especially with a super wide angle shot. It comes really nice. But the issue that both cameras have, and that Roma also saw on his bicycle videos, is that sometimes you get this micro jitters from the vibration. Like you can see that in the shot here that I show you right now, that was really bad. That's from the Insta360 with a 1-inch mod and the ND filter, and that's because these cameras need high shutter speeds to do the stabilization. So when you have a lot of shake going on plus ND filters, that makes everything a bit harder because your shutter speed is pretty low. And like, how was it for the bicycle videos?
Yeah, it was good. It's much better because you can see how fast you're going with an ND filter, but you can definitely see more jitterness because of the software stabilization of the GoPro Hero 9 in my case, because I'm not using the Insta360. But if you want to film fast-paced motorbike vlogs, a bicycle vlog or something like that, it's gonna make a huge difference between using an ND filter and not using an ND filter. And if you want the best results, definitely use something like a small gimbal on your chest or on your helmet or something like that.
Yeah, I also think for a GoPro and the Insta360 1-inch edition or 4K edition, the gimbal would definitely do the job. But what we also saw here is that when we use the 360 mod on the One R, it actually stabilized that perfectly. It needs a lot of exporting time actually, like you have to go through the Insta360 Studio app to stabilize it then and choose your angle and whatever, so it takes a bit more time. But here, even without using a gimbal, the 360 shots after editing, they look perfect. Like there are no micro jitters, nothing, and they actually look very nice with the ND filters. So I would say if you don't want to use a gimbal, then going for the Insta360 One R with the 360 mod is a very good option together with the Freewell ND filters. And if you want to use the GoPro or the Insta360 1-inch or 4K mod, then it's best to use a gimbal. But even if you don't have a gimbal, you will find some spots in your footage that you can use that don't have this micro jitter. So you could also see in the shots that I showed you here in this video that there were some parts of the videos that suck and some other parts that actually look pretty good. So in your final video you only use the good parts obviously, but if you really want to show it a bit longer and it should look good all the time, then you definitely need a gimbal on these cameras. And I think for that reason I would likely go for the Insta360 One R in that case, if you want to shoot videos like that, and use the 360 option. And as mentioned before, when I went down again, I also set it to automatic and basically left it a bit of space in the ISO. But what I recognized is that both cameras actually ramped up the shutter speed, so they keep the ISO low and ramp up the shutter speed, and that again got rid of the motion blur. So when I had that in automatic mode and not completely manual, then it still sucked on both cameras. It was the same. So you should definitely set your shutter speed manually. And I mean, on the GoPro you can give it the min ISO and max ISO, and then it can only change the ISO. So you should probably do that, like min ISO 100, max ISO 400. I think you use 800, or what do you use in your videos?
No, I use 400 as well.
400 as well, yeah. So I also think, like, from the noise levels, maximum ISO 400 on the GoPro is a good choice. But on the Insta360, to be honest, like, there's not the option that it only can change the ISO. It always changes the shutter speed a bit. So in that regards, the GoPro is a little bit better. Yeah, but on both cameras, I think it's the best way to just go for manual, and you have full control. And actually, the GoPro even it like makes the shadows so bright that if it gets a bit darker, the whole image, you still capture enough detail. So from my opinion, from my experience there, that's totally fine. Yeah, and that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below again how you like the new format here with the vlogging. Hope that goes well. And if you like this video, definitely hit the subscribe and the bell notifications button, and see you in the next video. Bye.